Hi, welcome to this edition of the Corner Office. I'm Chris Marchetti, in case you didn't know me, with Excel Courier and Logistics. Today we have a very special guest. We're talking about our insurance, and the value of insurance is we carry the insurance to protect our customers, we carry insurance to protect our employees, and we carry insurance to protect our contractors. And it's important that you have the right kind of coverages to protect all those people involved with Excel. So today we're going to be talking with Brian Jungeberg, who's our insurance expert and main guy. And with that, thank you for tuning in. So what do you do for us here at Excel? Maybe tell folks how you...
That's a loaded question. No,
other than cost us a lot of money.
I just spend your money.
Yes.
I would say that we work with risk management, right? So risk management can encompass procuring insurance products for you to help protect the business and your customers. It can be discussions about how we have a safer workplace, a safer warehouse. It can be all of those things. A lot of times it's working with the operations team or the sales team on, hey, we have a customer that's asking for these insurance requirements, right? Do we have these? If we don't have these, what do they cost? Should we be going back to the client and talking about something different with respects to insurance products? And all those kind of things in between. So a lot of times our team is pushing out certificates of insurance, proof of insurance, auto ID cards, all of the stuff that kind of is the nitty gritty insurance stuff that, has to get done.
Right. Well, and we're in a fairly unique space with the non-asset, generally non-asset, maybe not totally non-asset, but less asset light independent contractor model. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you all know a lot about. I mean, we have every now and then, somebody, hey, you gotta check out this insurance company, and you talk to them, and then when you say, oh, well, you use independent contractors, they're like, oh gosh, it's gonna sound like I'm hanging up, but not really. You came along.
Sure. So when I came into the business in the early 2000s, we were KIK Insurance, and KIK had been born out of Oswald Companies, where right. Jeff Ice had established saw a need for the last mile space. Mm-hmm. Back then we always called it courier messenger, right?
Right.
The good old days.
Right.
And then it evolved. We actually sold that company to Oswald. We were at Oswald for a while, and then we left Oswald and started Brightstone Insurance. And then from Brightstone, we're now Risk Strategy. So it's been the same team the whole time, but we've changed names a few times now.
Well, and hopefully Jeff is a little less involved, will kind of enjoy a little time away, or is he still kind of staying pretty involved?
No, he's fully retired now.
Oh, okay.
I think he's second guessing his retirement. He's always a guy that likes to work, so we're trying to find things to keep him busy.
I've heard that about retirement. People are like, wow, man, so.
You can only golf so much.
Right. Well, I could golf a lot because my game is so horrible. I could use a lot of golf if they try to get better. So why isn't your insurance important to our industry? Not to the couriers and to the customers.
Well, so I think most time, generally the insurance space looks at asset light or non-asset based operations, and all they think of is the Domino's pizza. Mm-hmm. We're going to get it there in 10 minutes or less. And they think of this kid in 16 screaming across town in his vehicle. And that couldn't be further from the truth, but the insurance world is, if they're frightened by something, they're going to be frightened by something for a long time. So I think where it's very unique in your spaces, we do see the use of 1099 independent contractors. We even see employees driving their own vehicles with some operations. And it creates this unique exposure called hired and non-owned auto. So you are hiring these guys to drive their vehicles and do deliveries. And it creates an exposure for them, and it creates an exposure for you as the company. And what your client wants to know is, hey, look, if something happens, God forbid, do you have insurance as Excel that's going to protect Excel? And really what they care about is them.
Right.
And that's what we specialize in. So there's a unique way that you have to go about procuring that insurance. You have to look at what is required by the DOT, right, to have your motor carrier operating authority.
Right.
You have to look at how you treat those independent contractors so that they remain independent contractors and somebody doesn't tell you they're employees, because that would be poor too. So there's all those things that kind of go into it, right?
Right. Well, and I think you touched on something there, is the value to the clients. Protect them from a certain level of liability, right? So they're removed slightly from a certain amount of liability, and so that's beneficial to them. I think beneficial to the industry because there are a lot of courier companies that may be smaller that really maybe won't have the necessary type of coverage. I mean, we talked about, like, our first insurance guy, we said, we think we have insurance and we'll find out as soon as we have an incident. And then it evolved over time to a little bit higher level and a little bit higher level, and then met you all.
Yeah, we have an old saying that's, no one asks what the price was after the claim. They ask if it's covered or not.
Yeah.
And that's, that's very self-serving in one sense for the insurance space to say that, but, we would say, they don't have good coverage program like you guys do, then this is what they're using for insurance, which is a really poor way to go about it. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I had a phone call yesterday with a client who has never bought hired and non-owned insurance.
Wow.
And yes, scary as that is, and they have a claim from a driver that got into an accident. Their 1099 driver caused the accident, multiple injuries, broken limbs, punctured lung. Yeah, it's not great, which unfortunately means there's probably no protection for that courier company when they get dragged into the lawsuit, which is nowadays, more of a likelihood than it ever was. And some of that's honestly chalked up to the, what some people would refer to as the Uberization. Transportation network companies have really exposed the 1099 model, I think, in a poor light. Because when it's done the right way, like this industry tends to do it, you've got a lot of people moving product along and doing that. And in a way that's structured with the right insurance program from where you guys sit, like Excel or another courier company, it all works very well. The early days of Uber and Lyft and the other companies like that, kind of soured people to their opinion of 1099s, and it's every plaintiff's attorney loves seeing those type of claims now. So it used to be really more of a severity issue in terms of losses, and it's sometimes now becoming a frequency issue in certain geographics where they're in the know about what to do to extort money.
So insurance, kind of think about that a little bit in terms of, you can have very minimal, you can have, just like your own personal insurance with them, you can have the whole range from just a little bit on up. What can you tell us about that?
So that client, for instance, just kind of your normal, hey, I have cargo and general liability. That's it, right? And you think, wow, there's this big auto exposure out there. You haven't done anything to address it. The next stage would be our recommendation for anybody, auto liability, whatever that means, depending on how your operational makeup is, right? Mm-hmm. If you're asset light or no asset, it's purely hired non-owned, maybe it's a fleet auto liability policy too, cargo, general liability. And I'll say this as a caveat, recognize what I say sometimes is a little different because we build in some bells and whistles into our coverage forms that isn't standard by most of the insurance industry standards.
Right.
So you may also need, say, a crime policy if you're not working with one of our forms. And you would need that because, well, if an independent contractor were to steal cargo and you didn't have a crime policy and you just had a standard cargo form, that wouldn't be covered automatically. Mm. For you, we don't need that. It's built into the coverage form we do for you on the cargo. So it's those little things where if you understand the industry and the space and how it operates, you're kind of looking at protecting both you and the client almost without having to think about it, right? We want it to be out there and automatic so that we know we're taking care of everybody that's involved if there's a claim or a loss. The next level then, I think after you look at auto liability, cargo, and general liability is, probably from a liability standpoint is thinking about something like an umbrella or an excess liability policy. Mm-hmm. And what that does is takes your $1 million coverage on the auto side and expands it to 2 million or 3 million or 4 million. There's been way too many losses over the last few years that have what we call nuclear verdicts that'll eclipse $10 million. I get asked the question all the time, what's the right amount to buy? It's a tough one to answer sometimes. It can be what you're comfortable with, what makes you sleep at night as the insured, as the owner of the company. It might be very simple because the client's dictating what you need to carry based on requirements to work with them. So you gotta kind of have to hit the right, amount of coverage versus what's required versus what the spend is. So that's
well, like I always say to Brian every time at this time of the year when we are renewing, I'm like, I don't like you very much because it's always a lot of money. And he says to me, if you needed me, you'd be glad you spent the money. So I say, you're right. Here's the check, hand over the money. But it's kind of, and I think something else you touched on that was interesting is that different types of stuff. Like we may have a customer who's a jewelry store, and you'll say, hey, we've got a special little rider because of that type of store, or some of the medical stuff that we do, you need different types of, you know, and they can be client specific.
Yeah.
Not,
so
you know,
what you left out is I have to pry the check from your hand. But beyond that, yes, we can carve out things. I think that's one of the fun parts. I tell people all the time. They say, "Well, what do you do? You know, you schlep insurance all day." We build puzzles. I mean, it really is no operation in your world, and I think you would agree with this, is the same.
Correct.
Everybody
Yeah,
does something
sure.
a little different, and that's where the nuances come in to understand. Okay, you tell me what you do and what clients you work with and the goods you're handling for them, and we'll figure out what makes sense. Sometimes, you know, you'll have a client come back and say, well, that's great that you have $100,000 in cargo coverage, but we want $1 million.
right.
It'd be very costly maybe to put that over all of the operation, and frankly, you may not have that exposure that you really need it. But for that client, you may, okay, we can do a little carve out just for that client specific work and take care of them that way. And you try to strike the balance again of function and affordability.
Right.
And then that in turn really helps you be able to do what you do for the client without breaking the bank and, you know, turning the screws to them from a rate standpoint.
Right. For all the customers out there, you see, you know, we work with Brian and a company like a reputable company, and we provide a lot of good insurance. For all you competitors out there trying to learn some good tips, Risk Strategies is a great company to work with. Brian's a great guy to work with, really knows what he's talking about. So
thank you.
You want to give any plug for Risk Strategies while we're here? Last minute plug on.
Well, we would love to talk to anybody in the space, and I think that hopefully our clients would all say, you may not always love what we have to say, but we're going to tell it to you anyways, and we're going to help you make the decision that works best for your company. We're not all or nothing shop. We've been around a while under different names, but we're not going anywhere anytime soon either. So if it doesn't work out this time around we talk, who knows what happens in the future, but use this as a resource.
Right. Well, they do a great job for us, and I think you have something else that you're also. It's not just you don't just sell us insurance. You also help us understand stuff. So when we talk about things, sometimes we get a contract. I send you contracts a lot, and you'll say, "Well, they're asking for this or that, but that's maybe not applicable. But you should talk to them about this or that." I mean, as Brian would say, he's not an attorney, so he doesn't give me legal advice, but he does as a partner kind of say, hey, when you're looking at this, you might want to ask them about that, or do they really need this? So I mean, it's really valuable. The relationship is great, and
happy to do it. We appreciate the long-standing relationship.
Yes, us as well. So don't forget, you can see go to www.xlcourier.com to see us. You can go subscribe to YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn. As we say, we're moving lives forward every day, and people like Brian help us move lives forward. So Brian, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for filling us in. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks.